record. We are here to have a stakeholders meeting and first public hearing to discuss a consolidated plan for CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program. This is a federally funded grant. It comes to the city as a matter of population formula by HUD, the U.S. Housing and Urban Development. It is based on census data, and CDBG must benefit low and moderate income persons. Please stop me if there's any questions at any time. This is an open meeting in order to get public input into what kinds of needs low and moderate income citizens have in the community. The national objectives of CDBG has to be benefiting low and moderate income persons or elimination of slum and blight. That would be as if we were in a CRA and we were going to do a code compliant structure, buy it, demolish it, and make it into a downtown park or parking area. Okay, that would be an example of that. Urgent needs would be disaster recovery CDBG funds, but going out into the community and rebuilding parks, rebuilding homes, etc. This is about the city of Sebastian. It's a little bit about the 2010 census there. Population 21,000. It's 30%, over 30%, 65 and older veterans, 2,600 veterans. Median household income $49,655. PCI 26,000. That's per capita income. Poverty at 12%. Homeownership is about 80%. And here is an Indian River County HUD income limits to give you an idea of what does HUD define as low to moderate income. So moderate income is 80% of the area median income, and that would be all the way up to the low income range or moderate. Can be in some cases it's called moderate. So 52,000 for a house of four. Okay, to give you an example. This is the two census block areas that were determined to be at least 51% low and moderate income in the last plan. I don't expect that to change. And there also is your CRA. So if you were going to do area benefit, which we'll talk about that in a minute, you would need to look at your census areas that have over 51% low and moderate income persons, so you have that benefit. Or you would need to do an income survey, door-to-door survey of the area that you wanted to work in to show that there was benefit to low and moderate income households. Eligible activities in the CDBG program, there's a lot of them. Acquisition and disposition, public facilities. Now, we can't do general public administration facilities, but we can do, for example, a fire station, okay? Clearance, demo and clearance, public services, such as your veteran services or your homeless services, okay? Relocation assistance, sometimes when you acquire property and do a project, you have to relocate. Loss of rental income, very rare, but that's something that can happen with displacement, which is a very rare thing. Private-owned utilities can be done when there are no public-owned utilities, for example. And then rehabilitation of homeowner houses, very low-income and low-income elderly disabled homeowners having their houses brought up to code. Construction of housing new housing is not allowed, but you could do the water and the sewer for a low and moderate income, say Habitat for Humanity or another nonprofit organization doing a low income neighborhood. Code enforcement, that's again your slum and blight, eliminating your slum and blight. Special economic development activities, there can be assistance to a micro enterprise or an incubator or that kind of business assistance. There's CBDOs that can be helped. Those are your nonprofit. It's a special designation. Developer, space nonprofit developer. Home ownership assistance with purchasing a house, for example, a low and moderate income family. And then there's program admin cost and there's some miscellaneous activities that can be allowed on a case-by-case basis. Services, 15% of eligible activities can be used on services. These are things like childcare, job training, recreation programs, education, senior citizens programs, homeless persons, counseling, and treatment. Other eligible activities, public facilities improvements, that can include, again, that can be acquisition, it can be construction of water, sewer, roads, stormwater, these kind of improvements, reconstruction or rehabilitation, say, of a drinking water plant or of a lift station in a poor neighborhood, in a low-income neighborhood. Sidewalks, flood and drainage, and community centers are also can be eligible in the right areas. The different types of low and moderate income benefit, how you show low and moderate income area benefit is, there are three of those. Area benefit would be going into the census tracts that HUD shows have at least 51% LMI, or going to a neighborhood that you believe the street is predominantly low and moderate income and doing the door-to-door survey. Yeah, so that's on the ground type of proof. In limited clientele would be the services. Limited clientele would be putting money into the Veterans Homeless Service or nonprofit organization, doing the services and putting money into their facility, okay? So their clients that are coming in the door getting services are the beneficiaries. And then low-income housing is direct benefit. So if you have a policy, an application process, you advertise, you get people to come in who think they're low and moderate income, or they're disabled, or they're elderly, or veterans, and they apply to the city to have their house brought up to code, okay, for safety and repairs, or ADA accommodation. Low-income jobs is another way to show LMI benefit, and this usually means that you're funding infrastructure that a business needs. So instead of running the water or the sewer into a neighborhood, you're running it to a commercial building, a business that will partner with you and will say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to open up this trucking center and I'm going to create 20 jobs, and we can use that as a benefit to run the sewer line out to the business, okay? So that's a partnership type of relationship where the jobs created are the low and moderate income benefit. Ineligible activities. Operation and maintenance is not eligible. So for example, if we have drainage swales that need to be cleaned and cleared, that by itself is not eligible, that's maintenance. But if we're going to replace and upgrade the culverts and redesign the swale for more capacity and do erosion control, then we're talking about a eligible project. Excuse me, let me have some water. Pardon me. Any questions thus far? Okay. Equipment is generally not allowed. An exception would be like critical equipment for a new fire station if we were putting money in that fire station or rehabbing a fire station. Furnishings and personal items. New housing construction, again, is not eligible, but the infrastructure for a low-income neighborhood or an affordable housing neighborhood could be looked at. General government operations such as the city hall is not eligible. Political activities and income payments. Sample low-income needs that could be considered. So a housing rehab program for your elderly, your veterans, and your disabled, where they come to you and apply through a program that you set up, and they're applying for up to $25,000 or $30,000 or whatever limit you establish to do things like fix the roof, fix the electrical, the code, the safety, and make it ADA, accommodation for them in their bathroom and their front door, that sort of thing. Veteran services staffing. So if you have a nonprofit doing veteran services, you can possibly, through services, pay for a staff. Stormwater retrofits. Go back to the example with the drainage swales. If you redevelop that and expand them and increase capacity, you could look at that. Sidewalks and lighting in the CRA. Again, that could be slum and blight, or we could do a survey of the businesses or the homes in that area. A park, playground in an eligible census area, that's an example. A micro business incubator, okay, that's a special economic development type of project where you're helping small, individuals create small businesses. And then the fire station. If you are in a low-income service area, again, the fire station is like a park or a community center, all could be looked at. So the purpose of this hearing is public participation, to get ideas. Those are just some ideas to get us thinking about what the stakeholders, what the public, what the council thinks are things that we should look at in our CDBG consolidated plan as priorities for the city of Sebastian. Bearing in mind that we get about $100,000 a year, and so, you know, we have to stay within that budget. We're focused on about $100,000 a year program. This would be a recurring program. It would be an annual allocation. Today, we're already working on a draft plan, the generic data, and we are going to put in whatever comments we get today. And then that draft plan will be posted for 30 days for comment, and then there'll be a final public hearing to adopt, okay, for process. And that is all that I have, except for your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, under the sidewalks and trails, can we take out an old sidewalk and put in a new one, or does it have to be a completely new sidewalk?
It can be rehabilitation as well.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And you had mentioned veterans organizations and working with the veterans in the community. Now, you had talked about doing something to rehabilitate maybe their facilities or something like that. We have a very strong veterans community in Indian River County who has stated that they would like to probably work with us in I guess, utilizing these HUD dollars. Would we be able to work with that organization on some of the projects they're doing, rehabilitating homes and such? Because I believe they do a lot of home rehabilitation for veterans. So if the veteran's home was in an area where it was eligible for these dollars, would they then, with the assistance of, would we be able to work, I guess, in concert with the veterans organization to go ahead and get the dollars to those folks?
Yes, on paper, I would say that could be looked at.
Okay.
And you can use the income of the veteran family. Mm-hmm. Okay, you could use their household income in order to qualify them as low to moderate income benefit. Okay, the people living in the house.
So they don't necessarily have to be within that blue shaded area. No. They can be anywhere. So that blue shaded area would be for community type projects like a sidewalk or a new, I believe we did one along Old Dixie at one time where we did we did a stormwater project along Old Dixie.
Exactly.
Because it was...
if the Veteran Services needed a new building and you were putting money into the building, then it would you need an area. You need, okay. But if you're putting it into the home or you're putting it into the services like staffing or that, then the clientele, the veteran clientele, are the benefit.
Okay. Anything else from council? Any questions? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And at this time, we'll go ahead and get some public input. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this CDBG grant application? Sir? For this, we have a 5-minute time limit. Yes, sir.
I'll try very hard, Jim. I represent the Veterans Council of Indian River. I am a member of the VFW local post here in Sebastian, which is the only VFW post now in Indian River County. I am also past commander and judge advocate of the American Legion post here in Sebastian, and I have been a volunteer with your Sebastian Police Department, so that I am a little bit familiar with Sebastian, and I love it. Been here since 1994. The Veterans Council is an organization that is quite extensive throughout Indian River County. We have over 43, 45 organizations, including people like the Sheriff's Office and other business organizations and all kinds of services that are associate members. We have 25 and it's increasing actual veteran organizations who belong to it, who are such as the VFW, the American Legion, officers, organizations, etc. Now, what we do is something I want to mention to you, though, and then I'll get into what we can possibly help you. We also have a program in the schools, and I happen to be the one who handles the North County schools, and we do put 3 different programs. We have a Memorial Day 50-minute program, we have a Veterans Day 50-minute program, and we have an Americanism program that we are presenting, and they are presented. We have 3 teams in the county, but the northern end of the county, we've been doing it up here, and we've really had some nice results with the kids on it. All right, we have 2 committees in the Veterans Council that deal with monetary needs. on it. The first committee, it deals with veterans who are in distress, who have problems, and income is such that they can't handle the problem on it. That organization, that particular committee handles that. They have significant funding, usually a limit of $5,000 as they get funded on it. We have a second committee which is funded from an organization that has $100,000 available that also does the needs of veterans, but not on the basis of income. In other words, we have a veteran that needs a new roof, and which is one of the common things we run into. He is such a deal that it'll be a strong expense for him. It won't break him, but it'll be a strong expense for him. We do participate with contractors, and we do pay for the repairs on it, either partial, because sometimes we deal with other organizations on it and work apart. But we do deal and put money, and that money is available to veteran organizations throughout the county. I happen to handle the Sebastian area for a request on it. I've talked to our members, the committee members, and they are willing to consider to have a relationship with the city of Sebastian's programs where we would have a normal situation that would involve veterans who have a need that's approved by the city and is also approved by the Veterans Council. We would be glad to talk about sharing in that need, because sometimes you run into a situation where you may have more of, say, $10,000, and it may be above the need that they're allowed to give on it, and could be that it would be shared by your program in the city and the program with the Veterans Council. So we are open to any coordination that you'd like to do. I'm the person you probably can coordinate with now. We do have our meeting the first Wednesday of the month at 1:30 at the City Administration Building B. Any representative from the City of Sebastian is invited to sit in and listen, and we do have quite a few people and organizations at these meetings. Unless you have any questions, I'll rest my case.
Well, first, I thank you very much for your service and appreciate all you do in the past and what you do for us here in our community now. And I look forward to potentially having a relationship with you guys and dealing with this and many other issues.
All right, thank you, sir. And of course, thank you all the city council. And I'm on your City Veterans Committee, and I appreciate everything that you do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. I guess we'll move to item C, where we're to select eligible high-level activities and annual action plan projects. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we can select several of these. It's good to have them in the plan so that we can reach out in different areas. One of the things that we can do, even though this won't fund it, but if we have economic development as part of our plan to develop economic development, different facets in it, we can go after other parts of HUD grants, but it still would be part of our consolidated plan, which HUD would look for. So we'd ask council to look at these items, and you can choose, and I'll let Mr. Alde tell me where I step off the boat here, but we can choose several items. It doesn't mean you have to fund all of them, but if they're in the plan, you will be able to. If they're not in the plan, it makes it a little bit more of a challenge.
When I look at these, I see, I don't see why we would exclude any of them. So I think that if they can all be in the plan, then we can kind of sort of massage this thing as we go along and make sure that we're basically covering all of those bases. I honestly believe that a portion of these funds should be set aside for the underprivileged veterans in our community. That being said, some of those funds could be to doing street improvements or sidewalk or swale improvements in their communities. So I wouldn't want to see us exclude anything that's on this list.
Let me ask the chief a question. I hate to put you on the spot, but your community policing organization, the area that was delineated on the map, are there services within your community policing organization that you might be able to enhance within that area that you think could provide help for in that particular area of the city?
Probably.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I think that that would be a great way for us to put some money into providing positive feedback. I mean, the community policing organization in Sebastian does a fantastic job. And
We were actually out there last week on Friday at Schumann Park and spent several hours. Also looking at the SEPTED, we do have certified SEPTED persons in the police department, so I'm sure we could work something out. Just, I'm not sure what we're looking at doing in those areas.
I would like to add that to this list, that they can be talked about, because I think that it's an opportunity to spend some money where we can get some positive feedback in an area where we might need positive feedback.
Oh, we definitely need it there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so you're talking about the community policing
Community
organization?
police organization within our police department receiving some funds to expand the services they provide within that area where we've identified as a lower income, basically a low income area in the city. Yeah.
And would that be able to be added?
Sorry, what was the question?
Mr. Dodd?
Well, what I would like to do is add to this list the city's community policing organization within the police department, the possibility of using some funds or being included in the list to use some funds to expand their community policing structure within the area that's been identified as a low-income area.
I guess, Mr. Aldi, would that be something that would be permissible or permittable under this grant?
It would be a stretch, but we could certainly ask. You were talking about a code enforcement officer.
No, I'm talking,
no.
Sebastian has a very active community policing organization where they go out and...
Community policing,
Outreach.
okay, so volunteers.
Well, no, these
they're
are actual
actual
police officers that go out in the community and sponsor events. They work with children. They try to make sure that they're being very proactive in extending the police presence, not as an enforcement issue, but as a training issue for the individuals within that area.
So let me ask, what would you fund? What would the dollars go to?
The dollars would go to programs. Like the one program the chief just mentioned, they had a hot dog with a cop in the Schumann Park, which is located within this area, where they invited all the neighborhood to come in, spend time talking to the police, look at some equipment, eat a hot dog, kind of.
Is it only
the
real
chief can come up
property,
and expand on that.
Is it only actual, I mean, you look at this stuff, it's street, it's actually physical property.
It's, you need a physical investment. So are you going to hire a staff person? Are you going to pay for a new pavilion?
A truck, a trailer?
You need something, a physical investment. You can't, in other words, you can't just fund an event.
Okay.
With CDBG funds.
All right. Okay. All right, I'm fine. I'm settled now.
Okay, so just for the record, and Mr. Alve said we need to read this into the record, what is currently on this list. And so as per the agenda, the following projects are here for the council's consideration. Under infrastructure improvements, street improvements, drainage improvements, crosswalk, sidewalk construction, US 1 gateway parking improvements. Under parks and recreation, sidewalks and trails, all-inclusive playgrounds, SEPTED, that's community policing through environmental design, rehabilitation of community center facilities, acquisition of real property, housing, a rehabilitation program, program administration cost. If you want to add the COP or supply or tangible property to COP, I believe is what would be the explanation there, Mr. Alday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you can nail down something that you can put the money into, a physical improvement or like a staff person or a facility that they need or something like that.
All right. That would be worth having a conversation on how that could be worked into the process.
And it doesn't affect us getting the grant to have that on this as a potential.
No.
It would just, HUD would just have to approve whatever.
They would just say no to that one item.
Right, okay.
In other words, each item will be considered in their, they have an online system, so we put these in online. Each activity will have a field, and they have the ability to say no to any specific one without, regard to the rest of the activities in your plan. And in your discussions, you do need to think about the top. What is the activity that you think first and foremost should be addressed, because we would need to do a one-year action plan, which is simply saying this is the activity we're going to do in 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
And the infrastructure improvements, streets, drainage, and so forth, that's within the area that was designated on the map. That's not outside that. So things like crosswalks and sidewalk construction, that's all within that area that was designated on the map.
But it can also be in the CRA.
Because it's not affecting an individual person where you can verify income, so it has to be within the census block.
Yes, within the census block, okay.
Yes, sir.
But the sidewalk can be in the CRA, correct? Did you not say that?
If we are addressing slum and blight, okay, for example, you know, if there's a sidewalk that's in bad shape, okay?
Trust
and
me, it's in really bad
It's
shape.
bad for handicap accessibility, for example, and we
Yeah.
want to replace that for slum and blight, then it.
Okay, North Central, from
gotcha.
US 1 to Davis Street.
Okay, that's a $100,000 job, we just spent our money.
Even if we only do part of it or one side of it, you know,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
that's
may
a
I
really
ask-
bad.
Just one second real quick.
It's not even wide enough for a wheelchair.
It's not?
Would it be appropriate to add another bullet point, veterans assistance, on here? So that it clearly states that a portion of these funds are available for veterans assistance. So where you have program administrative costs, and then we have COP, we can add veterans assistance.
I would put, if I may, I would probably put that under the housing main bullet. We have
Sure.
a rehabilitation program, and then I would put it under that, maybe for veterans assistance.
Sure.
Is that the?
I like that,
thought?
right.
And you're going to actually come up with a plan that, we're not going to just say we're going to do all this stuff. You're going to come up with a plan that has dollar amounts and has so forth that's involved in that, right, before the next time we talk about this? Is that improve it?
So the goal is to set the top priority of where you would like this money to go. This has to sit on a website
Right.
and out for public opinion for 30 days and then be brought back.
Okay.
So we kind of need to narrow the 2020 focus. And if it sounds like veterans and North Central Sidewalk are the two that you're looking at as a priority, we can make that part of the priority to be reviewed over the next 30 days.
Yeah, it's just bearing in mind that you have $100,000 total for each year, so.
Yeah.
So if you have a $100,000 sidewalk and you only spend $50,000 of CDBG on it, then you've got to show the funding from elsewhere to go forward with the project.
Yeah.
All right, and now is there anything else from council?
I have one more question. What about, with the disposal costs for that old hotel, if the Public Works Department tears it down, would that be covered?
That would be removing blight, but you would only be able to then create a parking lot there, which I don't think this council would.
I wouldn't say it would be a parking, it'd just be open green area until sell it or do something with it.
It would be difficult to then to redevelop it at that point, once you spend the, correct me if I'm wrong, once you demolish it, you're removing the blight, then it may preclude us from building another infrastructure onto that site.
It would be a federalized asset at that point. So if you sold it, you'd be paying the money back that you put into the into the asset. If you were demolishing slum and blight code enforcement, demolishing, cleaning it, and putting a park there, a permanent park there, that would be different.
Yeah, we're not doing that, thank you.
All right, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but please bear with me on this. There's been the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council went through a planning process several years ago, and there was a lot of things that were said about HUD funds and the acceptance of receiving HUD funds and the ability of a municipality to maintain their own zoning districts. Where it's been stated that if you accept HUD funds, the federal government will then be able to control your zoning. So that was stated on several occasions. I'm sure there were some council members up here who've heard that. So I just want to make sure that the federal government won't have oversight of our zoning any more than they currently do, based upon us receiving HUD funds.
So there will be some restrictions on what can happen with the monies after with the properties that money's been expended on. In other words, you can't expend a bunch of money and rehab a house and then they turn around and sell it off for a huge profit. There's some time frames in that, but I don't know where they would ever affect our zoning, but it would affect what could happen to the property after the federal funds are expended.
I would agree with that it's basically how and where you use the funds, where you would have federal tags that would affect how you can use that disposition of that property.
But the oversight would be stated clearly ahead of the use of those funds. Federal government couldn't come 5 years later and say, we're going to make this a low-income housing area where you will have 12 units per acre.
If they tried to, I would just cancel I would just cancel my, and I'll be very frank with you. If they ever come to that level, I would just cancel the entitlement funding and not participate. But that's your right. In other words, your ultimate right is to say no to the funds and not use them and avoid that, okay, sort of thing, okay?
So for example, though, if we were involved in partnering with the Veteran Association and we spend $5,000 of these funds to assist a veteran in buying a piece of property or rehabbing a piece of property, what would be the potential impact on that individual? Would they not be able to sell it for 10 years, not be able to sell it for 5 years? What's the impact on that?
What's most commonly done is there be a lien on the house for a certain number of years. 10 years is customary.
Okay.
You don't have to do 10 years, but that's common. And in that time frame, if they sell the house, they have to pay back.
Okay.
Net proceeds of what they make, they have to pay back.
Okay, so they wouldn't sign an agreement that makes them criminally liable or anything like that to the federal government if they do something? 'Cause
No.
I wouldn't want to put somebody in a situation where the feds can come after them and...
It could be just as simple as a lien mortgage, a second mortgage, no dollar mortgage lien, or a no payback mortgage lien unless they sell the property, restricted to resale. So if they resell it, they're going to make money, they got to pay something back.
Right, okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, it works kind of like the State Housing Initiative Program, the SHIP program. We set up the program. If we're going to do rehab or with them, we would set up the program, and we can either set it up that it's forgiven in 5, 10 years, or you can prorate it every year that they're in there, then that balance comes down. That's entirely our program, how we set that up. But we have to have some safeguard that we're not just rehabbing a house for someone to flip. So that's why the federal government and the state always looks, because this is run through Department of Economic Opportunity, correct? Is this one, or is this not?
No.
It's not, okay.
This will be actual direct allocation to the city. City would self-administer.
Right, so, but they're going to want some assurances that we're not just spending money so someone can flip it and make money. So they'll want some assurances in our program. Okay. That makes sense. But they're not going to come in and say, now that it's this, it'll always be that. It's our program that sets those parameters. In other words, if we said it always has to be a low to moderate, if we take a home that's low to moderate income, doesn't mean it will always stay low to moderate income. If someone sells it in the right time frame and someone else moves in, they're not. It doesn't have to be low to moderate income forever. The house can go back to just a regular home on a regular tax roll.
Okay. Anything else from council?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would add to the global list the economic development, because if we ever apply for an economic development grant through CDBG, it doesn't have to be, but it's good if it's in our consolidated plan, and we're looking at in the future. Not necessarily using this 100,000, but if we look to future grants at the airport or that to develop infrastructure to bring businesses into our business park or into the airport, it would be good to have that in our plan.
Agreed. Any objection from council members? All right, thank you. Anything else from staff? All right, thank you. We are adjourned.